That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Is that a soca
Rick
groove?
Stojak.
Sofa groove.
Soca.
Right on. A little bit of soca.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Hey, everybody. Welcome to D.E.C. That was Rick Stojak's Soca Baby groove. That was
Soca
awesome.
Baby.
I love it. Soca Baby. Soca Baby. Good stuff. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in today. Yeah, we've got a kind of a cool show today. And we're going to be talking about not losing yourself within a band, right? Not kind of getting lost in the band. And I think we all have those kinds of experiences, and we want to talk about that a little bit. But before we get started, I want to do a little bit of house cleaning here and take care of some stuff. First of all, if you want to contribute to the show financially, we have a Patreon page, helps us keep the lights on, stuff like that. That would be fantastic. And then we have a good things. Good things is just stuff that we all have going on in our individual lives, and stuff that has been happening with us. And to my left from this angle, to my right from that angle, over here, up over there, we've got Chip and Jeremy, who both are birthday boys. So I'm going to throw it to Chip first. Chip, what's happening, man? How was your happy birthday?
Thank you.
And how you doing? What's going on, big man?
I'm doing great, man. I had a good thing to report. Sunday night, I played. Well, I got overloaded with songs at the last minute with all kinds of breaks and stops and changes. I freaked out. I called a couple friends and I calmed down and I got to work. And I got through the breaks and the changes and I focused on my job and I pulled it off. And both shows went great. The second show was with the Tucson Pops from the Tucson Orchestra.
Awesome.
And we played at the Reed Park Band Show and there was over 2,000 people in the crowd. It was amazing.
Awesome.
It was a great night, man. So I had a great time. So that's my good thing.
Woo!
Chip, did you have a featured drum solo in the show?
I had a little shingy ding ding that I did with a cha 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 at the end. It was pretty cool.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite drum solos.
I love the
Yeah.
cha-cha. I love those hybrid gigs where you're doing something that's unusual with a different thing, like playing with the Pops. That's like how many pieces are in that band?
That was about 40 pieces or something like that.
How often do you get to do that, to play in front of
Never. And they had a harp and they had two big basses. And I mean, all these violins and trumpets and flugelhorns and timpani and drum set. Everything was cool.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Very cool.
Nice way to spend your birthday.
How about your birthday?
Yeah,
My
Jeremy,
birthday
what
was
about
fun.
yours?
Yeah, I went up. I was actually on a golf weekend with some friends up in Bodega Bay, so really beautiful up there, and had a good time. Played some really crappy golf, but you know, it's not like drumming where it's always good.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Love it.
Just last weekend had a recording session with Gene Feinberg. You guys remember Gene?
Yeah.
Deck Date. That went really great. Super fun. And gearing up for, I've got a gig on tomorrow night with the Bonafides. You guys know that band too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then gearing up for a big trip to Europe in late October into early November. We got Michelle and I are going on a 3-week trip to Spain and to Rome. She went to high school in Rome for a couple of years, so she still got lots of friends there. And I forgot to tell you guys, remember every year I do that Halloween gig where we travel up and we dress up as some band? Well, that's coming up 2 weeks in 2 weeks. So
Who are you dressing up as?
So I can, if I tell you, it has to stay within the 5,000 people that are watching here.
Okay.
Okay, look, if anybody says anything, we're coming after you.
Yeah.
So it's because it's a big reveal when we go on stage, like who's
Is
the
it
band
really?
gonna be this year, right? So we don't let it secret up, but I'm going to let it out. We're actually doing for the first time a kind of a hybrid situation where we're doing basically most of the soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to have your big collar and your...
Yeah.
I want to play that.
Yeah.
Are you going to have to wear tight pants?
bell bottoms.
Bell bottoms. Man,
Yeah.
those guys, they had very, very tight pants.
The trick with the bell bottoms is that sometimes the bass drum beater gets caught in the
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
thing, so I got to roll it up when I'm behind the key.
No, dude. You
might-
know what? Rubber bands. Rubber bands.
Yeah, there you
Put
go.
some rubber bands. It works
Another
great.
use for
Okay.
duct tape for a musician.
Yeah, it'll be a fun gig. It'll be a fun gig, Lindsay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bart, Rick, what's happening with you?
Yeah, Rick, what's going on with you, buddy?
Oh, boys, I had the most incredible weekend. I hosted Zorro here at the studio in San Diego,
Right on.
and he did
Cool.
2 workshops for my students. It was a massive success. We had 12 individuals for each of the 2 workshops, and Zorro killed it. Everyone left inspired, completely in awe of his drumming. I mean, straight up, he's one of the greatest drummers in the world. Just watch the videos. You can watch the video and it's like impressive, but when you see him live doing this, and and he's doing all those ghost notes, and you just the pop of the snare on the accent contrasted with the ghost notes, it's just a magic in the room.
You can feel it. You can feel it.
You can feel it, and having him so close on the drum kit. I was just so grateful to all of my students and Zorro, for showing up. I could fit 12 people in my room after moving a lot of stuff so that I could get, I know I've got at least that room for workshops. So Zorro was such a class act, guys, too, because he did not want to mess and make any extra work for me. So he played my kit without moving anything.
As it should
time.
be. As it should
be.
Bravo to him. As it should be.
He didn't even adjust the snare height or the hi-hat.
Excellent.
Anything.
Wow.
Tuning, nothing at all.
Excellent.
And he tore it up. You would
Play
never
it as
ever
it
know.
lays.
Yeah,
Yep.
you would think he was playing on his kit, He
Perfect.
said, well, it was difficult, of course, because it's not his setup or pedals and all of that. And so he was in town. He's promoting his book, Maria's Scarf, which is his incredible memoirs. And a story of his love, his mother's love, kind of a rags to riches story. So I highly recommend that book, in addition to his big gig book and his drum method book. So just so grateful. I've got so much video to shift through. I've got so much to practice after watching him.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
Rick,
how about you, Bart?
Cool.
Rick, you're going to need to install some balcony seating in your studio.
I know.
Balcony seating. I think it's a good idea.
I've got so much stuff in here. I had to move the DW kit, the electronic kit, and the percussion station, and then bring in a bunch of chairs. And first workshop was on hand technique. So we had drum pads for everybody, kind of like Bart did on deck day, up in the Bay Area. And he just worked on hand technique and timing and foot technique. And the second workshop, each one was 2 hours, was on just grooves, essential grooves. And man, the swing, it's all about the swing, man. And what he did that was so helpful, and I think for everybody is to see how many of the grooves he played had a swing feel. And all of the funk stuff, the hip hop stuff, the dance stuff, the reggae stuff, and how it all goes back to the jazz swing.
Yes.
And so I think it was a real eye opener for everyone. And so
awesome, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Zorro. Thank you to my people. How about you, Bart? What's up for you?
I got nothing after that. I got nothing. I really wish that I told you this before. I wish I would have not been playing that weekend, because I would have totally have been there, dude. I would have been there in a heartbeat. But we were playing. So yeah, no, things are going great. I've got the band's working a lot, which I'm really thankful for, because usually at the end of the year we slow down, take off for a show up in Prescott, Arizona this weekend.
Hey, my side of the woods.
Yeah. Have you ever been there, Chip? You ever been to Prescott?
Yes, I have. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, it's gorgeous. So we're playing up there to a really nice venue that we play up there all the time. We sold it out, so we're really excited about that. I've got the Bullseye One Shots is almost done. It's the artwork right now, so I'm hoping to have that kind of tied up and off to my web guy by Friday. If not this week, then for sure next week. Those are sounding phenomenal. I've given them to a lot of people that I know and I trust their opinions and everything. So I'm excited about that project and just kind of enjoying this time of year. This time of year, October
Yeah.
through January, is my favorite time of year. I love the holidays. We're first time. We're going as a group to PASIC. I've never been there, so I'm going to just be a kid in a candy store, as I know all
Yeah.
four of us are, and
Yes.
it's going to be awesome. And then in January, we got NAM, and so yeah, life is good, man. Things are good. Things are good.
Cool.
That's what's going on. So, well, it's great to hear everybody's doing so well, and congratulations, Rick, on all the success with Zorro. Wish I
Thank
could have
you.
been there. Chip
Next
and
time.
yeah, for sure. Chip and Jeremy, happy birthday to both of you guys. You guys
Thanks,
are the
brother.
best of the best, and not only amazing drummers and great educators, but you're okay people too.
Coming from you, Bart, that's like the highest praise.
Wow.
you guys are
Wow.
okay. You're okay.
Hey.
Hey, so yeah, so the idea today was one of the things that I often think about with and I advise young drummers, and I don't say young drummers as old kids, people who are just starting out. They want to get in their first band, they want to work with a group, they want to be around like-minded people and create music together. It's really easy to get lost within a band or lose yourself within a band. And I can speak from my experiences, and my experiences have always been this. I'm the type of person that, for me, when I get behind something or I get into something, if I'm the person in the band, I may not be the greatest drummer out there, but I guarantee you and I promise you that I will be the hardest workhorse in the barn. Right? If it needs to be done, I will give it my all to do it. And it's really easy to be in a band and really think that, okay, I've got these other people around me that are all wanting to do the same thing, and they don't. And so you kind of lose yourself and you get this tunnel vision. Okay, everybody wanted to reach this goal, whatever the goal is. It could just be playing one gig. It could be doing an album. It could be, we want to be the next Van Halen, whatever it is. Everybody's shooting for that goal, or so you think, and then you find out sometimes the hard way that not everybody is shooting for that same goal, and there's nothing wrong with this, but for certain people within a group, it might just be a really great hobby, or a great outlet for them, but they're just not on the same page as you. And so
Yeah.
when that happens, I think when you find that out the hard way, or you find out that not everybody wants the same things, it's really easy to be feel dismayed and feel like, well, gosh, I've been giving it my all in every way, shape, and form. And then the other guys, that I felt like I was pulling along with me, they're just like, hey, dude, what are you doing? And I do think that that happens to a lot of musicians who pour all their eggs in the basket of a band. And
Mhm.
so what I've always tried to do recently is, just as I said a moment ago, I have my side project right now is my Bullseye One Shots. I always have a book that I'm writing. I've been writing books and columns forever, and I always have one in the works, and work on a little bit here and there. I have Drummers Education Connection, which is very near and dear to my heart, and I do a lot of stuff for that. So I think I guess if you want to look at it as diversification and spreading yourself out there, I think you should. My opinion is kind of think about, as if you're going to be a professional musician, that you need to be diversified, because if you put everything into a band and everything into one entity, you're kind of hoping that 3, 4, 5, 6 other knuckleheads are on the same exact page as you. And sometimes they might say they are, but they're not. So I think just being diversified and having other things going on other than just a band, I think is important. And and don't lose yourself within a band and put all of your everything into it just so that the other guys or the other gal or whoever can just stick a stick in the spokes of what you're doing and flip you over the handlebars.
Well, relationships are difficult,
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Relationships are
Yeah.
challenging, and when you're in a band, you're in a relationship with multiple people often, and at the same time. And how many stories do we know, have we experienced, and our students tell us about? Oh, it was going great, but for this one person who kept blah blah blah, or showing up late, or didn't want to put the energy in, etc. And you can be as prepared as you can be and as thoroughly vetting as you can be by trying to have these great conversations beforehand. Hey, where's everybody at? What are the goals? What's happening? And or maybe it's an existing band, and what is the goal? Where does the band want to be in 6 months, in 5 years? And even in spite of that, it can go south for all different kinds of reasons. So it's a good
Yep.
idea what you say, because I had a student. He hasn't had with me, not with me right now, but he was like all about his band, young kid, 25 maybe, and like
Right.
Mhm.
thought like, oh, this is going to be it. We're going to be really successful and build a following. And he was all into the social media stuff and doing great with it. And sure enough, like the guy who was like the main writer of the songs decided he didn't want to do the same thing with the anymore, and the thing imploded. And he was devastated. I'm like, well, it's just one band, man. It's like you're 25.
Right.
You thought this was going to be the one, but uh, think of it as a growing process and a step in a step in the on the path.
Yes. There is a great podcast, Rick Beato,
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and he
we
just
should
did
get
an
him on. We should get
episode.
him on deck.
Oh, that would be amazing. He is
That would be
he's
awesome.
he's was this huge, massively successful music producer, and his podcast is just always insightful about the music industry as a whole. And he had this episode my brother-in-law turned me on to about all of the charting bands. Well, all of the top artists in the charts.
Hmm.
There's almost no bands that chart anymore. It's
Right.
staggering. The number is staggering. He was talking about where it was at in the 70s and 80s,
Right.
and like it's all bands. Now it's just a small percent are bands. It's almost all solo artists.
Right.
So you have to, I think a person getting into music has to kind of decide, do I really, you have two choices. Do I want to be a freelance person? And I think a
Hmm.
lot of people just kind of forget that they can be a freelance musician.
Right.
Freelance, or am I going to try to make it in a band? Well, first off, now we know very few bands make it at that big level.
Right.
So, a freelancer though is you're expanding, you're broadening your horizons. Doesn't mean you can't play in a band, but I think play in many bands, as many as you can, to really diversify your playing.
Right.
And for me, all in the 80s, I played with my brother in our band, and I found that all of my practice had to be around the style of that band.
Right.
It was a full-time endeavor. We were going to make it, right? It was a full-on dedicated thing. We were pedal to the metal to make our band Be Wild this big success. So all of my practice, all of my time went into the grooves of Be Wild. And so
So
all
that
kinds
caused
of other things got left by the wayside, all
There you
my
go.
style, right?
Yeah.
We didn't do double kick. No double kick. We didn't have very many swing. We had nothing that swung, really. So no practice on swinging, no live performance on swinging,
Mm.
and so Zorro's book, his book, The Big Gig, which is that book on, to circle back to Zorro, is big picture thinking for success. And
Mhm.
and Jeremy, I know you just read this book as well, and this book is basically all about, hey, you want to make it as a musician? Well, here are some thoughts for you to
Right.
consider, right?
Mhm.
And in the beginning, he's like, well, the concept of being in a band, we're not even going to go there because it's so hard to make it in a band, so to speak. So it was an entire book on like, hey, I'm going to be a free agent, a hired gun, that kind of thing.
Well, and let's think also about, you know, the drummers out there who aren't searching for stardom or, you know, becoming the next big thing, but they just want to play in their local band that's playing parties and a couple of bar gigs here and there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and talk, so it's not as much about diversifying for your career goals and safety as it is, and not, we don't even have to talk about diversification as much as what Bart came up with, which is like losing yourself in the band. So what would that look like for, uh, you know, a local amateur drummer who's playing bar gigs, and that's sort of their weekend fun thing?
Well, one of the things that okay,
Mm.
I'll give you a perfect example. So you're playing a weekend bar gig, and it's a regular gig, and it happens once a month, right? Happens once a month, every third Saturday of the month, let's say, for the sake of argument. And one person within that band is the person that, yeah, okay, well, we're going to promote it. So, okay, so how do you promote it? Well, everything's social media now. So we're going to go to social media and we're going to blast about this gig. Okay, so it's all over social media. But then the bar owner calls, hey, we want some posters to hang up for this gig in the bar. Just some old school hard posters. Okay, I'll send you the PDF. Oh, I don't know how to do that. I'm a bar owner, and I'm drunk all the time. So could you get it done? Okay. So it always seems that it falls on the shoulders of one person, right? And then, when that happens, of course, uh, you know, that person feels taken advantage of or whatever, and that's where resentments start to build. And I think that can happen. And I think it's great if you want to do that and just have it as a hobby. But I think that if you are going to have it as a hobby and you're going to go out and play one or two gigs, a month, you as the individual needs to look at it. Okay, the band is going to go do one or two gigs a month, and I'm going to let whoever spearheads that band spearhead it. I'm going to still do my thing over here. I'll be when I'm there at that gig, I'm going to be the best one that I can be. I'm going to be the best Bart that I can be when I'm at the gig. But don't let your other stuff fall to the wayside. And then if there is a person or people within the band that just keep dropping the ball or just blowing it, that's them, not you. If somebody over here is just completely tanking it time after time after time after time, that's them, that's not you. And maybe at that point you need to reevaluate and time to move on. Not just time to replace that member or build up some sort of stress or a resentment towards a person. Maybe it's time for you to move on. And I think circle back around what Rick said, being a freelance person. You know what? And what you said too, Jeremy. This is one band. There's 20 other bands out there that want me to work with them, or that I could go see if they need a drummer. You don't have to stick in that one thing and just be that person's drummer. You know
You
what I mean?
know, in running Bandworks, the School of Rock and Roll kind of program that I run, we have like 40 bands almost every quarter now, and a bunch of the drummers in those bands are my private students, and so I coach them, through the songs in their bands, and I hear about all the band dynamics, right?
Right. Right.
And it's even at the amateur level where they're only playing this recital gig or maybe like someone's birthday party, the, the dynamics and the egos and all the interpersonal challenges are no different than they
Yeah.
are at the top level
I can
touring
imagine.
recording artists. It's the same stuff. The same.
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, I think it's easy. The same. It's like this is just the human challenge, right? To not lose yourself in the band, no matter
Yeah.
whether you're playing, at the recital or the birthday party or at Yankee Stadium,
Yeah.
and I think it's more about even just sort of being like Rick talks about, all these habits that he has, these really great, positive, affirming habits of like gratefulness and good
Yeah.
communication, and those are the same things that you need to practice, to not lose yourself in the group, even if you're just playing the bar gig. And to be real clear with yourself about what your limits and boundaries are. I think
Mhm.
one way that people lose
That's
themselves
key.
in that they're not, they get uncomfortable, but they sort of just keep going with the flow because they're afraid to speak up for fear of disrupting the vibe, or maybe they're going to, if they say their truth, they're not going to be welcome in the band or something,
Right.
you know. But if you don't, it only gets worse, and then it gets harder and harder the longer you go out. So
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
when
it's just. Oh, go ahead, Chip.
yeah,
I was just going to say, when I first heard the topic for today's show, I kind of thought that sounds a lot like a relationship. Like Jeremy said, this is like life lessons. And from my own experience in relationships with girls, I've been in relationships where you're kind of you take up the slack for the other person, or you give them a little extra, and then you give them a little extra, a little more, and then that kind of continues. And pretty soon all the eggs are in their basket and your basket's empty, and you feel
Yep.
a little resentful
Mhm.
about that. That dynamic is pervade in all of these areas in human existence. Yeah.
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 Dude, you hit it on the head, because and I do agree with you. When you're the when you're the person that's giving it and giving it and giving it, and it can be anything. It can be I'm the person that had to go make up the posters, or I'm the person that had to do this on social media, or I'm the person that had to, whatever, you fill in the blank. I brought the PA system, whatever. And then there's that one person that just shows up and does the gig. What I've found, anyhow, is that person is usually one that causes most of the problems.
yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and dealing with the the human existence. I remember the human experience is the hard part. I remember one. I don't remember what show it was or what it was about, but Rick had brought up something about something like this. It was about it being in a band, and I was joking, but I remember saying, "Well, the problem with being in a band is that you're in there with other people, you know,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
and it's so true." And I
That's
always
the
Right.
find it
problem.
funny. That's the problem, right? Exactly. And I always think it's funny when what you just said, Jeremy. It's the same dynamic, and you, Chip, all of us have said it. It's the same thing, right? It doesn't matter if it's the guitar player or your girlfriend. They're people, and you have to learn to navigate people, but they have to learn to navigate you as well. And I have drum students all the time that like, oh, I want to be in a band. Okay, well, they get into a band, they start playing, they're out there working. And I'll say, well, hey, when you get to the gig, be careful of this, watch out for this, make sure you do this. Oh, and when you get there, be there a little bit early because you're going to have to do this and this. Okay. And then they come back after the gig and they do their debrief and their lesson. And they think that I'm some sort of, future telling, you know, person. I'm like, no, man, I've been there, done that. And it's just the human element. And when you see bands like where bands end up hating each other, Van Halen, right? Eddie Van Halen, I hate David Lee Roth, and then I love Sammy Hagar, and then a few years later, I hate Sammy Hagar. I want David Lee Roth. I mean, come on, man. It's
Hall and Oates,
oh
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
brutal.
Hall and John Oates won't even speak to each other in rehearsal,
right,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
toxic. I mean,
What
Simon and Garfunkel, dude. Simon and Garfunkel. Same
one
thing.
one thing that we could say for certain is that being in a band, whether you're trying to do it for a career or as a hobby, is going to give you the opportunity to grow as a person,
Thank
or
you.
really, really see where you need to grow.
I would
We've
also say suggest 100%, 100%, because it's a relationship. Yeah, it's challenging. It's a challenging relationship. If you find yourself in a band where like the vibe is great and everybody gets along really well and y'all enjoy playing together and you're more or less on the same page, even if there's some things that maybe you wish were a little different, that's worth a lot. That's worth a lot because I'd rather play with with a band where the vibe is really good,
Mhm.
and maybe the music isn't you know quite what it could be with some other thing where the vibe isn't there. Let me tell you a quick story. I used to, when I was in my 20s, I had a regular gig at this bar in San Francisco. It's called the San Francisco Brewing Company. And it was a tourist spot in North Beach. And I had it twice a month on Saturdays. And it was up to me. It was my gig as just as a drummer. It was like Jeremy Steinkohler and whatever. I could bring whatever I wanted. And so there was a good year or so where I brought a different group every single gig. So I just called different musicians up, jazz gig, right? So, standards, whatever. I'd call up different guitar players, different bass players, different sax players. And it was sort of my laboratory. And there were times when, this was also an opportunity for me to like meet and branch out and meet a lot of local jazz players. And sometimes I would contact these people who I knew were really good players because either I'd heard them or I knew about them. And they would come and we'd play. And I can tell you that the best nights were not always the nights where it was with the best musicians.
Mm-hmm.
I say best, I mean, most technically accomplished or most, in command of their instruments or chopsy or whatever. Like, clear, it was really clear. And it was like a powerful lesson that I learned from, in this year and a half of gigs that it, for the music for me to feel good about the music, there needed to be a certain level of, whatever facility and like accomplishment, experience. But it wasn't always, I didn't always make the best music with the best players. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, definitely.
And so it was like, there's so much more to this than just like the sum total of the parts you throw into the blender, There's the vibe and there's the way you think about music and the way you think about phrasing and punctuation and dynamics and who's a good listener, and who's a sympathetic player versus who's a more egotistical, solipsistic player, like that. I learned a lot from that experience. And so, the vibe matters a lot, and better music happens from a healthy vibe in the band, even if the players are better with a crappy vibe.
No doubt. I Jeremy, going back to you said something about sometimes things might not go the way you want. And, in a way we could look at that as a good thing if you can work with it and work on your own personal flexibility and tolerance and understanding and patience, and, and just when you're upset, look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, what is it about me that is a pain in the ass? And man, I think one of the best ways, what we really have to look at too, to help you get that communication and that chemistry is a lot of honesty and communication, just,
Jeremy
jam with people and kick ass, but then talk with the band, before you start committing lots of hours. Are you the same kind of people? Are you going to get along? And just really ask, what are all your goals? Do we have the same kind of goals? What are your preferences in life? Do they match? You don't want to invest too much, if it's just obvious that it's not going to work out. And I think keep a level head too. I really, this might sound a little bold, but most bands that party and get into substance and drinking, they're almost all going to implode. As much as I like to have a beer or two here or there, but man, when you get out there and you get the tensions of the road, or even just the bar band kind of thing, you're around alcohol and partying, and just watch any documentary on a rock band or any band, you're going to find
the same story.
Everything fell apart because they were all partying. It's always going to be that way. And so really, know what environment you can be in too. Like, don't get into that band if you can't be around that too. And that's honest to yourself. That's honest to the other people. Don't waste people's time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chip. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, not losing yourself in the band is a great topic, and it covers the gamut of everything. I mean, Jeremy hit it on the head when he said, knowing who you are, where your boundaries are, what your needs are, being very clear about what it is you want out of the situation is going to be the first step in acknowledging any situation that comes along and being able to get to a solution for it. I was back in 2003. I was kind of almost at the end of my run with different bands, and every band I was in at that point, it was like you said, Rick, it was 100%. It was nothing but that band. Everything about that band. That Chip Ritter is the drummer for X. You know, that's who I was. That's who my identity was. And when I got to the Bad News Blues Band, I was playing with them for 5 years, and I got an offer to sign on with True Line Drumsticks on a signature model drumstick. He said, "How do you want to list your name?" And I had this epiphany. It was just like, you know, my first thought was, oh, put the band's name on there. Put the band's name on it. Because that's my identity. That's who I am. I'm the drummer from this band. And then I just had this thought. I was like, you know what? Let's go with independent. Let's go with independent. And that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be Chip Ritter, the drummer, who, by the way, plays with this band.
Right.
Rather than identified with whatever the band was in my, and that was a big changing point in my career. And it came from disappointments in the past with other groups who I've gone all in on. And I felt, maybe I was wrong, but I felt that I was the one doing almost all of it and picking up almost all the slack. And I ended up getting resentful and breaking up with the bands like that.
Yeah.
It's easy to get resentful, Chip. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, it is, buddy, because of what you just said. You feel like, well, you know, you're doing all the, you know, you're doing a lot of the work, right? It's really easy to feel that way. It's so easy. And when I found for me, and I'm totally guilty of this, when I was building up resentments because I felt like I was doing all the work, I wasn't the one doing all the work. There was 2 other people, or maybe 3 other people, that were doing work as well. But because of, I'll come back again, because of maybe some other people in the band that weren't doing anything, barely even showing up half the time, I lumped those people in with these people, and now I'm the one doing all the work, which is wrong, because now you're you know, you're not recognizing what other people are doing. And I think that, again, it comes back to life. It's so easy to do that in life, you know. And like Rick said, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. And one of the things that I said this on my first DVD, I said, you know, if I'm sitting across a table from a person that I'm working with, whether it be in a band or any other project, and I'm thinking to myself, this person is such a pain in the ass, they're thinking the same thing about me. You know what I mean? And so you've got to kind of, like Rick said, you got to check yourself, you know, I think sometimes too. And in that situation. And I think for me, that's a time when it's best, okay, I'm going to take a step back. This thing doesn't own me. Right? I'm part of it. It doesn't own me.
Well, yeah, you kind of jump in, like you
Go.
just hit on something there about, you know, losing yourself in the band. It's like, you know, you can lose this, like, and Chip was saying too, you can lose yourself in a relationship, like a romantic relationship, where like, oh, you don't even know what you want anymore because you're so much about accommodating what the other person wants. And you have to be careful about letting the experience of playing in a band define you. And I think we've all been kind of hitting around this.
I think that's one of the core lessons. Yeah.
We've been hitting on this sort of you know, sideways all day, but now it just hit me, like when Bart was saying, if you let it define you, then and this is going back to what you said, Chip, too, you're putting all your eggs in this basket. And then if it doesn't work out, then you're crushed and you're devastated and you don't even know who you are. You're picking up pieces. But if you're more centered, more aware of yourself, knowing yourself better, respect yourself, like yourself, you know where your limits are, what your boundaries are, then you're going to be able to participate in that band in a healthier way and not lose yourself.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things to remember when talking about, you know, how do I not lose myself in the band, is to remember that ability to be a self-starter, to stand on your own feet, to know where and who you are as a drummer, to be confident in your abilities and your career and your goals. You know, regardless of anybody else, this is part of the plan that I've made for my life, and this is my life. You know, being able to define that and be clear on your own wants and needs is very critical, and not losing yourself for the band.
No doubt, no doubt, Chip. Guys, I can tell you, I invested 15 years of my life in one band with my brother,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, life worked out well because I did get to apply all the skills that I developed. But that was a 15-year investment that led to no success for the band.
Yeah.
So this stuff is for real.
Yeah,
No doubt.
Rick, very well said. I like that the way you this is for real. Yes, Rick, you hit the nail
Yeah.
on the head.
Thanks, Steve.
One of the things I want to let everybody in on a little secret right now. If you can see down in the chat, guys, Michael Kilmer says huddle up in oneness. The secret is that's my stepdad watching. And
wow.
yeah, he's a great guy. Mike's a great guy, and him and his whole crew sometimes come out and see the shows. He lives out in Quartzsite, Arizona, and he travels around a lot. And so a lot of times when we are, close by, he'll come out and see the show. So here's a little secret, and I won't let you in on everything we do, but every night before we go on, I've been in the Sam Morrison Band for 25 years. I have a huge amount of my life, a quarter of a century invested in this band. And I want to first of all start by saying how fortunate I am. I want to start by saying, I also want to say how grateful I am. The gratitude list is, it's reams of paper, of how grateful I am. And one of the things that we do every night before we go on, and it can be a little club gig or it can be a gigantor concert, we huddle up backstage, we put our arms around each other, and Sam says a prayer. And he asks that the audience sees God through us, that they see something good through us that he has given us. And so to me, that's a huge thing of gratitude. I get choked up when I talk about it because it's very personal to me. And I think it's easy to not have that because, again, I've been there. I've been in a place where I'm sitting there going, why is this person being so difficult? And I have to do what Rick said. Well, we've all said, I've got to look back at myself and go, well, I've kind of been difficult too. And so I think that point where you take a deep breath and go, you know what? This is going great. And this is a fantastic gig. And we're going to do great tonight. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to be working on my thing on my computer for this side project that I'm doing. I'm going to work on my book. Oh, that one thing that Rick said during deck the other day, I've got to touch on that in the next chapter, because he really nailed it. I got to put his name in there. I did that with Chip in my latest book, The Rhythmic Journey. There's a whole thing about Chip in there. And I think it's important to realize that you're not just that person. You're not just the person in the band. You're the person that has all these other things. Now, Chip, you mentioned, your signature stick. And I think that is a fantastic thing. Just having, my sticks just have my name on it and my logo, Bart Robley, and then my autograph. Think about Kenny Aronoff for a minute. If Kenny Aronoff, who does have a signature stick, put all the bands that he had played on, that'd be a big stick. There'd be a lot of stuff on there. So knowing who you are, it's your life to live. It's your journey. And hopefully these people that are in you, on the journey with you in their area can do the job and that they were hired to do or want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the dynamics of being in a team, being a leader, being a follower, no, you can't be a good leader if you don't know how to follow. Things like that come into play are very important, but any students of mine that are in bands, I would still recommend getting your own website, your own business card, your own identity of who you are on the drums. And I'm not against bands. I'm just saying on top of that, in addition to being in the band, it has nothing to do with your disloyalment or not being loyal to the band to have your own website expressing your love for your drumming.
That's right.
And be really true to yourself. I'm going to circle back around to Zorro. Um, I remember reading his book, The Big Gig, and he was talking about how um, he got a gig. He doesn't name who the artist is. Rick probably knows it, but he names that he got a gig with this artist, and he was going to get paid on the back end of the gig for the tour. And there's nightmare, man. There's a whole show for you getting paid for a tour, but on the back end of it. And he was very bold and stood up, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Rick, you'll know it better than I read the book a few years ago, but he's like, no, I'm getting paid for the gig up front, and this is what I want for it. And he wouldn't back down.
Yeah.
And he thought, well, okay, I'm not going to get the tour. Well, sure enough, they folded under the pressure, and he got paid for the tour up front before he played a note.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the most brilliant things that I'd ever heard, because you know what, man? In the 25 years I've been with SMB, we've had, and I say we on that, we've had 2 gigs where we got stiffed. And there, the business is replete and filled with people that have just been screwed over for money.
Right.
And I think that story, so that's what I mean. Be true to yourself. Make sure that, hey, this is what I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to show up at this time. I'm going to bring these instruments. I'm going to give it my everything, and this is what I expect for it. Be true to yourself with that. It's important.
Yes.
Yeah,
I will tell you one thing, man. Sam Morrison Band, keeping you as a drummer for 25 years. I'm assuming he's the leader of the band. And if you could keep a drummer for 25 years, you're a good band leader.
Yeah, right.
Sam is, I've got to say that Sam is absolutely one of the most honest, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I'll tell you a quick story. So we have our keyboard player right now had to have a surgery. And so he's out for a couple of gigs. And so we needed a sub for Vegas last weekend and for this gig up in Prescott that's coming up this weekend. So we hired, Sam called up our old keyboard player, Chris Daniels, and he tripped over himself saying, yes, I want to do it. So we're really excited to have him back. And Chris is a character, so it's a lot of fun and a ton of laughs, and we're having a great time. As we're driving out to the show, we're talking about business and this and that. And I don't even remember what the conversation was exactly, but Sam said something about paying royalties on past albums. And Chris, we call him Doc, that's his nickname. Doc played on two albums or 3 albums, I don't remember. He played on a couple of albums, and he gets his royalty check twice a year. And he piped in and he goes, every time I go to my mailbox, and it's an old school check, he writes out the check and sends it to him, and I get a check from you guys. It is so cool, and it just shows me how professional you are and how great you are. So I tell that story, Rick, to kind of echo what you said, that he's a great dude. And I'd listen to the guy sing the damn phone book. I mean, he's got such a great set of pipes. He can sing anything, and he plays his ass off. And he's a good dude, man. He's a good dude.
And I'm sure he would say the same thing about you, Bart, because
he would say I'm a pain in the ass.
Nah.
What he would say. Bart
is no, he wouldn't, because every band leader is trying to replace, or often band leaders are trying to replace their people with somebody who will do the work for cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Always just seems to be somebody who will do the work for less. And so you've obviously earned your keep in the band and your place in the band, and showed your value. And so I'm sure he wouldn't even dream of having someone else do the gig for half price.
Well, thank you for those kind words.
That's
very kind of you. Yeah, it's a good gig, and I've learned a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that that's the key too, is to anybody out there, that when you're being true to yourself, be sure you listen to other people, because sometimes it's easy to be the person that's being combative. And the more that, we've all said about working with one another and being a team member, the better
Yeah.
is. I mean, look at Deck. I'm going back and doing. I'm pulling the audio from. And by the way, there's a plug for the podcast. We are now a regular podcast. You can listen to it on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, blah blah blah. You fill in the blank. We're out there. And I'm going back and I'm pulling the audio from old shows and uploading it whenever I get a chance. We've probably got 15, 20 shows up there now. I've got a little tag at the beginning, got a commercial. It's going great. But I look at the old shows and I look at where we are now, and it really is a lot different. We really have our feet under ourselves. There's a certain look to what we're doing. And so you grow, and I have learned so much from the three of you guys about drumming, of course, but just about doing a darn podcast. I mean,
Yes, but we also, all four of us, have not lost ourselves in the deck. We have not lost our identity of who we are. We were able to maintain our own standing on our own feet. I think that's the moral to the story for me. I mean, is lose yourself in the music, not the band.
Oh, there's a tagline for you. Yeah, what? Right. I got a pen. I got to write.
That's what we're done.
Yeah,
Wow! Wow!
Mic drop. Damn, Chip.
What did that Fred commented? Fred commented, the music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side. Hunter S. Thompson.
I love that quote. Dude, okay, now I gotta go watch Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas now.
Fred's so funny.
Oh man, that's so
all right.
great,
Well,
man.
thanks you guys for tuning in today. We had a great show as always. What a pleasure to hang out with you guys every Tuesday morning. So
thanks,
cool.
Jeremy.
Back at you. Hey, you know what? Real quick, PASIC is coming up. If anybody's going to PASIC, we're going to be there.
Yep.
Yeah. So
come hang with us.
Come hang out. Come hang out. Pick up on some of Rick's good vibes, man.
We should get decks of cards printed with the deck logo, and then they could be decks.
Decks. I like it. I like it.
Decks.
Decks. I love decks. I like that. A deck of decks. A deck.
Decks. I love it.
You can't say it too loud though, or too fast.
Wow.
I want a deck.
Beautiful.
You want a what? I want a deck. Oh, okay.
We got to make I think we should put those up on our. We have a website, y'all. It's Chip is going to put it in the chat. It's drummersedcon.com, and we do have some merch up there for sale. We have T-shirts and mugs, and our books are up there. And then you can also find out about our Deck Day clinic coming up in April down at Aquarian, which we're super excited about.
Maybe we can have the decks for Deck Day.
I think we should.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It could be a Deck Day deck.
Can I be the Joker card?
Chip will be the Joker card. Yeah.
Who's going to be the Queen of Hearts?
Chris Brady.
Chris Brady. Oh,
yeah. Funny.
There we go. There's a soundbite. There's a soundbite I'm going to grab.
All right, guys. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Rick, play some drums, baby. Come on.